Welcome to Building My Legacy podcast. This podcast is designed for leaders and entrepreneurs who want to leave a legacy and will provide strategies that focus upon key elements for legacy creation, determining your desired impact and its benefit, increasing your legacy's reach by engaging key stakeholders, planning, prioritizing, and executing. Here's your host, Dr. Lois Sonstegard.
Welcome, everybody, to today's podcast, Building My Legacy podcast. And I have with me today Cody Hofhine. Cody is fascinating because he has dealt with an issue I think many of us begin to look at as we look at building legacy, and that is, how do we do that? Part of it is having a financial stability from which we can operate. And so Cody provides a perspective. He's been done a tremendous amount of work in real estate and teaches people how to make money in that area in wholesaling real estate. And so, Cody, tell us about your journey and how what you've learned can be useful for people who are looking at building a legacy.
Holy smokes. Well, it's an honor to be here, Lois. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and hopefully share something that might be of value with your audience. If we go back maybe just a little bit, I hope I go to the right place. And if you want to slow me down or speed me up, say, dude, you got to speed up, let me know. But if you go back, even the early 2000s, I was an individual that was working for my dad. And so I'd work construction and I loved it. It was a family business. I got to see my dad, my brother every single day. Is phenomenal. And then 2008, 2009 hits, and everyone knows what that hits. And it hit construction really hard, even here in Utah. And my dad and my mom, they were so kind. They would always want to just keep paying me a paycheck, even though work wasn't coming in. And I thanked them for that. But at the same time, I was like, I can't do that. I can't let them have their legacy, their financial security being taken away when there's no real work going on. So I took it upon myself to go find a job during this time. And one of the hardest things I had to do was go tell my mom and dad that, hey, I'm going to go do this. And I want to do it to help them, but they were like, no, don't leave. It was we're all crying. And I'm like, I've got to do it. I got to take care of the family. I've got to take care of my family. You can't pay me. There's no jobs coming in. So I go out and learn sales, and I'm selling vinyl fencing of all things. And as I'm there learning, selling vinyl fencing, I keep coming across just individuals that were insurance agents. They're like, why sell a fence where you just have to sell it once and you'll never get a residual? You should be an insurance agent. So after a year of doing vinyl fence sales and loving it and doing it, I took the plunge. I was like, man, I do want to be an entrepreneur. I do want to work for myself. And so I opened up an insurance agency, and I thought this residual thing is going to be amazing. 365 days into insurance with my wife and 2 kids at the time and a mortgage. At the end of 365 days of the first year, it was $19,000 is all I made for this first year of entrepreneurship. It was so tough, Lois. It was so tough. It didn't add up. There wasn't enough money. It was so tough. But there were incredible individuals. And I want people to understand that there's still incredible people out there. I know we live in this crazy time right now where we're seeing all this chaos and fighting, but there's great people out there too. And I want to share a story that changed my life for the better. And that was this individual. We met a family in this neighborhood. And for whatever reason, they would come by and visit. And this dad would come by all the time. The husband would always come by, and he'd drop off plates of cookies, and he'd drop off shakes. And he says, here, you and Wendy have shakes. And we never told Lee, we never claimed poverty. We never had frowns on our face or woe us. We always had smiles on our face. But somehow he knew we were struggling a little bit. He would leave off and on the bottom of those plates, and I'll tear up a little bit maybe because it's so touching to me. Taped to the bottom of those plates would be $500. Or taped to the bottom of the shakes would be a few $100s. And it was the money that we needed to get through that month. And I learned from him at a young age in entrepreneurship and at a young age in marriage that it's all about giving back. It's all about helping others. It's looking back to see who can you lift up, who can you make better, who can you bring up. And we had very little money, but we committed, me and my wife, we committed to each other, but we also committed to God. We're like, hey, we are going to, like, if we have any success come in, we're going to use it to give to other people, to help other people. It's not just going to bless our lives. We're going to bless other people's lives. And that principle alone has, I believe, because I didn't go to college. I didn't graduate college, but I live this principle and we live it firmly. And it has opened so many different doors, so many different opportunities now in the future, to where insurance got a little bit better. And then ultimately I transitioned into real estate. And from there, it just started blowing up. But the principle we learned was we had to be good stewards of the money that we already had. It wasn't like, oh, I needed to increase income. With increased income comes financial literacy. That's just not the case. It was, I needed to be a good steward of the little money we had, still use some of that little money to bless other people's lives, and then start growing little by little. Don't keep up with the Joneses. Just sacrifice, like stay within your means, and just things started growing little by little that way.
You know, Cody, I think one of the things that we don't spend enough talking about is it's that person who came to you and without expecting anything back, gave what you needed.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to money in our cultures right now, that's the one thing we don't feel we can expect to give or to share. It's like that's the big no-no in a sense. And yet to jumpstart people, that's often what's needed, not ongoing.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't a welfare system that was put there that would go on into perpetuity. It was what you needed at that moment and then allowed you to discover where to go. So from there, you went into real estate. You've become a great high-performance coach, teaching what it is that you've learned. Tell us a little bit about your new freedom. You do a podcast on that. You do a podcast on real estate. Tell us about that and what brought you to that.
Yeah. What brought me to it is insurance was still like, it's a game of stacking BBs is what I say. It's like it's a slow game. And so it was really slow growth. But what was not coincidental, was I was insuring a ton of investors. I ended up being like the insurance agency where everyone would come to get all their fix and flips insured. And I insured a ton of these investors. And one night I came home early from work and I walk into the house and I wanted to surprise my wife. And to my surprise, she's sitting there crying at the table. And so I walked over to her. I'm like, Wendy, what's going on? And she looks up and you could tell it wasn't like just little tears. Like it's like the mascara is going down her face. And she looks up, she's like, Cody, I just don't know how we're going to pay our bills this month. I don't know how we're going to put food on the table. Like we're still living this paycheck to paycheck. In fact, worse than paycheck to paycheck. And I just remember me feeling like this little bit of failure still, that here I am 5 years into insurance and like, we're still worried about this finances going in. And she didn't make me feel like a failure. I felt that on my own. It was all me. Like I just, as a husband, as a father, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Well, I happened to be going to an investor association meeting where all these investors meet. And that's where I'd go to like get new business. And that night I went with different ears because I came home to a wife crying. And so I went there and I realized that if I wanted life to get better, it was me that had to do it. It's me that had to get better. If I wanted life to change, it was me that was going to have to change. That life didn't owe me anything. I need to own up to it. And so I go to this meeting with a little different set of ears. And this individual stands up and he's like, hey, I found this deal 3 days ago and I've already sold it and I made $29,000. And I'm like, like I just worked 365 days not too long ago, made $19,000 for the whole year. This guy made 10 grand more than that in 3 days. And so I just remember thinking, I'm on the wrong side of this table. Like, I wonder if there's this other opportunity out there, because it wasn't a lack of working. It wasn't a lack of living a budget. We were very good. We were good stewards of the money we had in. There just wasn't much coming in. And so I went up to him afterwards. I said, would you be willing to share with me what you do? And he's like, Cody, you're one of the most driven people I know, that I know I'd be teaching my competition. So I don't know if I should be teaching you. And I was a little bugged at the time, but I was also grateful he is so honest to tell me that. So I just started learning, and then I found a mentor out of Florida that taught me how to do this stuff. And about 39 days into me trying this wholesaling real estate, I made my first, cashed my first check for $24,000. And I was just like pinch myself. I was like, what's going on? This is real. And it worked for me. And from there, it was like the snowball effect. Once you have that confidence, because I'm still not providing as a father. I'm still not providing as a husband, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes. But this time I'm going to do it different. I want to get a mentor to show me step by step what I need to do, but I'll take the action better than anyone. And so I went out there and did it. And it just started snowballing from there. Once I got that confidence, it works. Oh my goodness, it worked for me, a guy that knows nothing. And from there, I just kept going with the momentum and kept growing and staying true to the principle that the money that would come in, I'd still use it to bless other people's lives. That it wasn't like, oh, this is all for me. I didn't change that concept, but I had to learn it when I had no money, because if you don't learn it when you have no money, I don't think you magically learn that concept of giving money when you make money. It's got to start when you have nothing. I think it's got to start when it's a sacrifice and it hurts. And then you got to maintain that. What's a sacrifice? What hurts? And I think that's the secret, is give till it hurts. You can't just give a little. You got to give till it hurts. And then you start to see this law of the harvest keep coming back tenfold.
Cody, real estate. Okay, before I ask that question, let me ask you another one.
Yeah.
We see huge changes happening in commercial real estate with people now staying at home. Yep. Companies debating, do we ever go back to the workplace? Because
so true.
We might do better having people continue to work virtually. So there's commercial real estate, and then of course there's residential real estate. Where's your emphasis, and where do you see the market going in those two areas right now?
Great question. Commercial is taking a dive right now. I don't know what's to come. I think every time the market has a crash or a correction, there's always been new things that we've learned from these corrections. This time, commercial is getting hit hard, and I think people are saying, man, this new Zoom stuff is pretty cool. We can still be in touch with our people. And so we're learning that you can do work and effectively from home or from a remote location. And so that's hurting, and that's hurting really in a big way. On the residential side, it's still very strong in most states. Now, there's some things that you have to watch. I always watch what's called in-migration, how many people are moving into the state. And you'll notice that New York, their real estate's kind of plateauing right now. But it's also an evidence and a sign that if you go look at their in-migration, it also plateaued, meaning people aren't moving there to get jobs. And once you see people not hiring, you'll see the immigration do this. Well, then all of a sudden you start to see real estate start to do this as well. In Utah, it's still very, very strong. In many states, it's still very, very strong. Why? Because people are still moving to Utah, for example. And as long as that immigration is still going like this, so is real estate, meaning there's not enough inventory. You put a home on the market and it's gone within 1 day, 2 day, 3 days. It's under contract. It's gone because there's just not enough inventory for how many people are moving into the state. So that's a big key item. But I stick to the residential side just because there's not that big up and down swing, and business doesn't determine, because people still need to either get a home, or if not, they need to rent a home. And so residential has always been my sweet spot, because I feel like no matter what, people are always going to either need to buy one or rent one.
So Cody, when you look at that process of homes, we've all seen on TV, about flipping homes, right? Uh-huh. So is that what you do? Tell us. What's your process?
Yeah. So wholesaling is pretty unique, and it's not the HGTV, like the glamour where it's like Chip and Joanna Gaines. And you're like, oh man, I love these guys. I'm going to go fix and flip because they can do it. Yes, I don't fix and flip much. What I do is called wholesaling. So wholesaling is just, I didn't have money. You got to remember, I had no money. So fix and flip, you got to have a little bit of money to get into the game. Like you've got to take down the house or borrow the money. And then you got to put the money into it in the rehab and then put it back on the market. For me, I didn't have money, but I had drive. I had time to go out there and be a deal finder. So to make it very simple, wholesaling is just the art of finding deeply discounted properties. And that comes from multiple ways. It could be distressed properties where maybe you're driving the street, and we've all seen them before, where there's maybe windows boarded up, or there's shingles on the roof missing, or there's the grass is 4 feet tall and it's moving. It's because there's a little dog in there, but you just can't see the dog. There's some distress going to the property. Or there could be people maybe in a distressed situation. For example, we had an individual last week that needed to move out of state, and they needed to move within 2 weeks. Now, traditional real estate, like a realtor coming in and listing it, is not going to move a property and close on the property in 2 weeks. And so now they look to, can I get this speed and convenience from an investor? And they may have to sacrifice a little bit on price, but they'll be able to close in 2 weeks and fulfill what they need to do and move to the next state. It could be someone that's going through divorce and they need to split up assets. It could be someone behind on their mortgage or behind on taxes. And now it's in the 11th hour and they're like, hey, 2 weeks ago, we got a call that says, hey, I'm losing my house in 3 days. And we tried to do everything we can to save it and help them. But now you're in the 11th hour. There wasn't much we could do. And so the whole point we do is we're out there to just serve people. And I think the more we grasp onto this concept, there's a lot of people that are always chasing the dollar. And if you chase the dollar, you'll be running yourself ragged. It's going out there and adding value to people's lives. And if you can add a lot of value to people's lives, the byproduct is you can make a lot of money. I love a book called The Go-Giver. It talks about that principle in depth. And it's just how much value can you bring to the world so that you can make the income you want. If you want to be a millionaire, go bring $1 million worth of value to the world. And so we go out there and we help solve problems. We're not really in the real estate game. We just find the distressed homes, the distressed situations, and see how we can serve them. Much like if my mom called me and says, hey, I lost my job. I would never go to my mom and say, well, Mom, how many beds and baths do you have? Let's see what I can do for you. I'd be like, Mom, I didn't know that. How do I help out? What can serve you the best? Do you want me to line you up with a realtor? Because that's going to get you your most money. And I'd start working it that way. And that's what we do with our clients is we help them in this process and see how we can help solve their problems. And sometimes it's us purchasing their home at a discount. From there, we take that and we just assign. So if you had a contract, this is just a piece of paper. It's not really a contract. But if you took a home and put under contract, I would then assign this contract or sell this contract to a cash buyer, the Chip and Joanna Gaines that are like, I want my next fix and flip. And you're like, cool. I've got a home over here at 123 Main Street under contract at 50 cents on the dollar. Do you want to buy this so that you can go close on that home? And you make a fee. And that's what wholesaling is all about.
Got it. So, how do people find you?
Okay.
And how do you go about building that? Because that is, to me, it sounds like it could also take a fair amount of time.
It can. Yes. If it was so easy, everyone would be doing it, right? So I don't want to ever pitch that this is the easy boat, hop on. So the first question you said, how can they find me? You can definitely go over to CodyHofhine.com. And that's a crazy last name, but it's Hofhine. And you could always learn more about that. But also YouTube channel. So I always put out content every single week and I put it on this topic and it's called Real Estate Freedom Formula is the name of that channel. And that's where you can find me on Facebook. But ultimately, yes, it's going to take time. It's going to take some money. I don't want to tell people like, oh man, you don't need to have no money. I had very little, but you do need, whether that's gas, because you're going to be driving the neighborhoods to find these distressed properties, or marketing dollars that you get these lists from counties, cities, municipalities, townships that you know that there could be people that need your help and you get your mailer in front of them so you can begin to have the conversation. So that's kind of high level. There's so much more to that, but you can't share it. Like there's not enough time in the world to break it all down, but ultimately it's an awesome way to just serve people at a very high level, help them get to their plan B, and a way to get in the game with real estate to where ultimately when it comes to now this financial security, we cherry pick our best deals and we keep them for long-term rentals to bring in that passive income. And that's something I'm super passionate about because right now we're trading our time for money, but we already have multiple doors now in many different cities. Some of them are in different states where we own these homes free and clear because we just cherry pick our best deals. And now it's bringing in rent every single month. And so at some point when we don't want to do this trade time for money, there'll be money making us money through these rentals. And that's something that's really exciting about real estate. And that ultimately leads you to that financial freedom, that financial peace.
So Cody, when you work with real estate in other states, how do you manage that? I mean, that's becomes also a logistical and physical problem in terms of splitting yourself.
It does. I think where most companies or most people go wrong is they try to scale the team before they scale the process, or they scale the actual how it's done. So we always have our processes in place before we ever scale a team. So it's much like McDonald's. Think about it. They can be in any state, any city, and do well. Why? Because they have a process that's dialed in. If someone comes in tomorrow and says, hey, I'm not flipping burgers anymore, they'd be like, okay, we got 20 people that's in line ready to do it. And they'd plug them into a system. The manager wouldn't be back there training them how to flip a burger. They'd go watch a video that says, hey, here's how you do it. You're going to pull them out of this bucket. You're going to put them here. You're going to do this. And you're going to pass it off to the second person. And they could the next day literally tap into the system, the process. So we're really dialed in on our systems and our processes so that wherever we plug into, whatever city, state we plug into, someone can just watch this training, our system, our process, and plug right in versus take my time to be like, hey, I'll fly out there. I'll be down there for 3 weeks and I'm going to train you. No, we have a system and a process, much like McDonald's and every successful company out there, that we don't scale the team until we have the process. So that's our biggest, gold nugget to how do you do it in multiple states is we're really dialed in on the process, really dialed in on the system so that people can just plug in.
So tell me, that process, those people then are part of your system, or are you building almost franchise-like processes?
Yeah, we have our own. So we do have a couple of our own divisions in different states. But yes, we actually have started just franchising just this year, actually. That was new to us. This is something we've been wanting to do forever, but you have to go through so many, I didn't know how many legal documents you had to go through and making everything set up just perfect. But we just barely started franchising. So we actually just brought on our 13th and 14th franchise nationwide. And then we just had 3 people here last Tuesday kind of doing discovery day to see if this is something that would be a fit for them. And 2 of them already committed. So it's fun. This stuff has been really fun. The growth has been fun. But my joy now is I don't share this in any, I think you would know me good enough now that we've been talking, that it's not out of any ego or out of any pride. My goal is to be financially free. And by that, I meant I don't want to have any debt. So I have no debt. Even my rentals have no debt. And I love helping people. Like when I wake up in the morning on Monday, I don't be like, oh man, I got to go to work because I got bills to pay or I got this mortgage to pay. I wake up every morning and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I know there's another Cody Hofhine out there that's struggling making ends meet or struggling being that dad, being that husband, being that father. I know someone out there is struggling living paycheck to paycheck. I'm going to find that person. I'm going to help them and let them know there is a way to do it. If this guy could do it, you guys can do it. And so that's the difference. When I got out when I was debt free, it was my focus wasn't on myself anymore. It was, how do I help more people? How do I help them feel this, get this, and feel that peace that comes with being financially free?
Cody, I think right now with what we've gone through with the pandemic, people still not going back to work and that uncertainty, this really opens up a lot of possibilities for people who may be looking at, what do I do and where do I start? So if you were going to assess, is this something that I'm ready for? What are the questions you should ask yourself to be able to know, am I ready to step into something like this? Or to be able to say, yep, I want to do that, but here are some things I need to resolve first in my life. So what's your advice?
Yeah, some of the big questions I have, they're always like, is it legal? And I'm like, yes, it's absolutely legal. The other question I get, do you have to be a licensed realtor? No, I'm still to this day not a licensed real estate agent.
Really?
The third, yeah, so you don't, like a lot of people think, oh, to buy a home, you got to be a realtor or you got to work with a realtor. Simply not the case. We don't buy our homes on the MLS. We buy ours directly with the homeowner. Like we're off market, working directly with the homeowner. The other ones we say, like to get into real estate, you got to be uber rich. And there may be some strategies that could be true, buying a big commercial building or buying rentals and have to put all this money down on rentals. But with our strategy, it hasn't been. And so I call it just the real estate freedom formula. And it's just our 3-step process that ultimately helps you make money wholesaling real estate. And our goal is, because a lot of people tell us this, like, we want to quit our day job. Like we're done. We're done working for corporate America. And so my tagline is literally that: 3 steps to making money in wholesaling real estate so you can quit your day job. And that's what people love about it. They're like, man, I can get into real estate and quit my day job. Like, let's roll, let's go. So those are the big questions that come up. The big things you got to commit to is you can still do it part-time. It doesn't have to be full-time. At some point, you just look at your own numbers and be like, okay, am I making more money here or here with my time? And then you can make the jump. Many of my students end up quitting corporate America and doing it full-time. And I would tell you that you got to commit to progress, not perfection. This is the biggest thing out there, the biggest secret to everyone. Be willing to take massive imperfect action. Don't build a perfect plan. Don't get stuck at YouTube University in this analysis paralysis. Just get out there and take little action and let those mistakes be okay. Like don't wait for a perfect plan. The person taking imperfect action is still miles ahead of the person that's taking no action at all. So just get out there and learn. You're going to make mistakes. It's okay. I sounded like a complete rookie. Like, I guess the kindest word would be like a complete idiot on the first appointments I ever went on. But you learn from it and you get better. And then pretty soon it just starts working in your behalf. So commit to progress, not perfection. Get out of your own way. Wholesaling is simple. The only thing that's complicated is sometimes we're complicated. We get too complicated. We get in our own way and stop us from actually getting out there and doing it.
So, Cody, you talk about being able to do wholesaling without putting any of your own money in. Uh-huh. So how do you do that?
So the very little money, like I say, is going to be like your marketing dollars, getting your message out in front of the people. So ultimately, all you're going to do is you're going to be the deal finder. If you can be good at being the deal finder, just locate the deals, because a lot of fix and flippers, that's the hardest part, is finding the deal. But if you can get good at it, and that's exactly what I show my students, is be the deal finder. Don't do the fix and flip. That's like adult daycare. You got to go manage contractors every day. Like, I don't want to do that. And so what I do is I'm just really good at finding the deals. And what I do is I'll put it under contract at a discount. So we're talking like I'll get homes at 40, 50, 60 cents on the dollar. And let's say a home's worth, when it's all fixed up, but it's in a distressed situation, it's like maybe missing shingles, it needs a new kitchen, new bathroom, it needs to be updated. But let's say it's when it's all fixed up and looks beautiful, it's worth $200,000. And I put it under contract at $100,000. What I then do is I take that contract and I just simply let all of my cash buyers know that are like salivating for their next deal. They're like, I need my next fix and flip. And I say, hey, this contract will allow you to close on that home at 123 Main Street. I'm selling it for $110,000. So what the cash buyer does, like, yep, I want that deal. That's perfect. They come with $110,000 to the title company or the closing attorney, and then they close on the property. $100,000 of it goes to the seller that I put it under contract with, and $10,000 of it goes to me, and then I move on to the next deal. Like I'm done. I'm completely done. Now the cash buyer is going to go do his thing and fix and flip it, and I just move on to my next property.
So part of what I'm hearing with that is timing is critical, because you don't want to hold on to that paper for too long.
Yep.
Right. Otherwise, you're starting to pay money on it. So
that's right.
Right. So part of the trick for you is your ability to move that paper pretty quickly.
Yep. That's absolutely correct. But it's not as hard as you think. Do you remember the Field of Dreams? That was like one of my favorite movies growing up. Like, I loved it. And the whole message behind that, it's like, if you build it, they will come. And he built this beautiful baseball field in his cornfield. And he was so scared because it was going to take away some of his crops, that would take away his money. But he builds this baseball field, and all these legend baseball players come, right? Same thing with these deals is when you find a great deal, there's so many cash buyers. It's like, if you find them, they will come. You find these great deals, but more importantly, it's not as hard to build that as you think. It's so simple. I have 5 strategies that are in my course that just show you how to build up to 150 cash buyers like within 7 days. But now we have like 7,000 cash buyers just in our Utah market that are like, anytime you have a deal, send it my way so we can make an offer on it. So it happens, and it happens quick. Cash buyers, they love wholesalers. They love the deal finders because they don't want to be out there finding the deals. They just want to fix and flip their next deal.
So Cody, you have a course. What's the name of the course?
The course is called Real Estate Freedom Formula.
Okay, and we'll put this in the show notes for those of you who are listening. So you don't have to write this down, but where do they go to find it?
That they would just go right to the website. So codyhofhine.com, and they can learn a little bit what I do, because I'll go speak at different events. I go do a lot of stuff. I have my own private coaching that I do. That's like the high performance. But yeah, so they'll learn all the different courses and coaching in there, and they can learn more about the real estate freedom formula.
Let me ask you a really off the wall question.
Yeah.
I do some work with inner city people who probably have never really thought about owning their own place. They are rental types of people, but they really are also looking for how can they get in control of their life? How can they stop working 2-3 jobs and manage their life? Is this something that is possible for them?
It is. It is. You'll see some awesome stories within that website that'll completely, like, some of them, I watch them still, and they still cheer me up because I work so hard with them. There's individuals that are Uber drivers. There's individuals that are living worse than paycheck to paycheck. Just spoke to an individual yesterday that he is single. He went through a divorce and he's living on his sister's couch right now. So in terms, he's homeless. I've been able to just start him up, and I'm going to be excited when he comes back to his sister and says, "Hey, I no longer have to live here. I just did a deal that did this for me." And so when I tell you my favorite people to work with, like, I work with all people, but the widest part of the funnel, the people that think, "Oh, can I do this? Like, is the good times past? Like, this person can do it. Are you sure? Like, if I'm hearing about it, it must be too good to be true." I love working with those people because they're the ones that need it the most. And I love working with them. I love it. Like, I would say 80% of the clients I work with are the ones at the highest part of the funnel, meaning they're the ones that are like me, that were struggling. And so maybe it's because I resonate so well with them, because I was struggling for so many years that I know what they're going through. And I had very little money. I had no experience. I knew nothing about real estate, but I did commit to this imperfect action that we spoke about. And so, yes, anyone can do it if you're willing to commit. And is there going to be a little bit of an investment, like some kind of money involved, so that you can get some marketing out? Yes, absolutely. But that would be the case for anything. That'd be the case for if you bought a Subway franchise or you wanted to start your painting business. There'd be ladders and trucks and paintbrushes and all the different things that come with starting a business. But it's been so rewarding, and it's been fun to see people be able to crank out deals and then ultimately be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm back on track. Like, this is it."
Life can go on. Life can be better.
That's right.
Isn't that what we all dream for? Something
yes.
that can make it better. But it's not just to make our life better. It's what you were saying. How do we make other people's better? How do we build?
Yes.
So we leave something behind that is valuable.
Absolutely. Absolutely correct.
Cody, it has been, our time goes very, very fast when discussions are really fascinating and interesting, and you have such a marvelous story. I love how your heart in terms of what you're willing to give and that space that you create. And I think more than anything right now, this is what people are looking for, is how can I leave something in the future when right now I'm not feeling maybe as stable as I would like to be feeling? And is this a opportunity that they could look at? And so for those of you who are listening, we will make sure that this information is in the show notes so that you can be in contact with Cody. And Cody, thank you so much for your time. What a pleasure to meet you and to talk with you today.
Well, thank you. Putting this platform together is not easy. So I commend you, because this is not easy stuff. Like, there's plenty of work still you have to do. And so to all the ones listening, Lois is a sweetheart to do this for you guys, because this is not easy. This is not anything easy at all. But I know that your heart's out there to serve people, and I can see that. I can feel that in the time I've been with you. So thank you for putting this together, because you're the one that made this possible.
Thank you, Cody. Thank you all for listening today to Building My Legacy podcast.
You've been listening to Building My Legacy podcast with Dr. Lois Sonstegard. To book your appointment with Dr. Sonstegard, visit www.buildtomorrow.com.